after 12 o'clock noon on day number 4 crossing the ocean, and here's our update of how things are going. Latitude 44 degrees and 16 minutes north, and longitude is 49 degrees and 17 minutes west. Closest point of land at the moment, still Cape Race in Newfoundland, just 214 nautical miles away out on the starboard side. So overnight we continued our Great Circle route toward New York, we've taken a curving route across the North Atlantic to a point to the south of the ice limits, and we're now skirting the 200-mile distance off the land, off Newfoundland, and then we'll skirt 200 miles south of Nova Scotia as well, before we then start our run in towards Georges Bank and then in towards New York over the next 2 days. So this morning we passed around 20 miles to the south of Flemish Cap. Flemish Cap lies to the east of the Grand Banks. It's another very large, shallower area of the ocean, just off the Grand Banks, and about 58,000 square kilometres of shallower water, lots of fish out there, and being outside 200 miles range from Canada, then it's in international waters, so as the distance inside the 200 miles is now more controlled by local authorities, the fishermen tend to go further out and they fish out over the Flemish Cap. So now we're passing over the Grand Banks of Newfoundland, or we're just approaching the southern tip of the Grand Banks of Newfoundland, and we're going to cross this afternoon over the tail of the bank, and we're going to pass almost 160 nautical miles to the north of the final resting place of Titanic, and the closest point when it's out on the port beam this evening at 5 p.m. this evening, and will be 115 nautical miles away out on the port side. So the Grand Banks are comprised of a grouping of submerged banks. They include the Grand Bank, Whale Bank, Green Bank and Saint Pierre Bank. Most of the bank areas depths below 200 metres, and the continental slope quite steep along the southern and eastern portions, and then the banks drop down to range depths beyond 1,000 metres over a relatively short distance. The Grand Bank itself, deeply incised with submarine canyons along the southern and southeast areas, and the nose and the tail of the Grand Bank lie beyond the Canadian 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. So that's why the fishing men come out beyond the bank and go out to Flemish Cap. And then, having had a rest overnight, ladies and gentlemen, from putting the clocks back, we're going to return to that habit again tonight. So tonight we'll have the clocks back again by 1 hour, 2 o'clock in the morning, so don't forget to put your clocks back before retiring. That's all from me at the moment. It's a lovely day. We've had some fog overnight, almost 20 hours of continuous fog. We seem to have run out of that now, and hopefully will stay mostly clear as we proceed. Here's Kevin Morrissey.
Thank you very much, Captain. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Since departure from Southampton until noon today, Queen Mary 2 has steamed a total distance of 1,993 nautical miles and an average speed of just over 21 knots. This leaves a further distance of 1,180 miles to the Ambrose Pilot Station in New York. The ship's heading is currently 240 degrees and our current speed is just over 20 knots. As the captain stated, we are sailing over the Grand Banks of Newfoundland, and the depth under keel is just now 60 meters or 197 feet, with a sea temperature of 11 degrees Celsius or 52 Fahrenheit. As the captain also mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, we will be passing our closest point to the RMS Titanic site this afternoon and early evening. The Titanic was built at the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast. She was launched in 1912 as the largest ship in the world, and little knowing that she would soon become the most infamous ocean liner. Titanic was the second of three Olympic-class ocean liner sister ships. She and her sister RMS Olympic were almost 1.5 times the gross registered tonnage of Cunard's RMS Lusitania and RMS Mauritania, the previous record holders, and were nearly 100 feet longer. Titanic could carry 3,547 people in speed and comfort. Her reciprocating engines were the largest that had ever been built. The sinking of the Titanic occurred on the night of the 14th of April, 1912, through the morning hours of 15th of April, 1912, in the North Atlantic Ocean, 4 days into the ship's maiden voyage from Southampton to New York. Titanic had an estimated 2,224 people on board when she struck an iceberg at around 11:40 at night on Sunday, the 14th of April. Her sinking 2 hours and 40 minutes later at 2:20 in the morning on April 15th resulted in the deaths of more than 1,500 people, which made it one of the deadliest peacetime maritime disasters in history. Lying at a depth of about 12,500 feet or 3,800 meters, the wreck lies in two main pieces about a third of a mile, 600 meters apart. The bow is still largely recognizable in spite of its deterioration and the damage it suffered hitting the seafloor, and has a great deal of preserved interiors. The stern is completely ruined due to the damage it suffered while sinking the 12,000 feet and hitting the ocean floor. A substantial section of the middle of the ship broke apart and is scattered in chunks across the seabed. A debris field covering about 5 by 3 miles, or 8 by 4.8 kilometers, around the wreck contains hundreds of thousands of items spilled from the ship as she sank, ranging from passengers' personal effects to machinery, furniture, utensils, and coal, as well as fragments of the ship herself. The weather at present, as the captain also said, is cleared. The temperatures are 15 Celsius or 59 Fahrenheit. Winds from the southwest, 4-6 on the Beaufort scale. Strong breezes, which are 22 to 27 knots. And temps to increase overnight into tomorrow, up to 24 Celsius tomorrow or 75 Fahrenheit. And winds to decrease from the southwest up to 15 knots. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all from me. I hope you have a wonderful day on board Queen Mary 2, and I'll now pass you to our German hostess, Anita.